Hello, my fellow Raiders, Doomers, Crusaders, Mutts, and Fivers?
Dialers.
See, that still sounds weird to me, but...
Dialing it in.
It is I, Nathan, back again with another Indiana Jones cosplay video, joined once again by my good buddy, Morgan Loff. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about a cosplay that I don't think is often talked about, but is very often used.
Yes.
Which is Cairo Indy.
Yes, and this is actually my debut of my Cairo, Streets of Cairo Raiders indie cosplay, which is interesting because a lot of it is, you know, just stuff that you would find on a Raiders outfit, basically, but, you know, sans jacket and just a little bit more sweaty. And judging that it's 97 degrees out here in San Bernardino, this is a perfect day to do a Raiders Cairo cosplay right down.
Great time to not be wearing that jacket.
Yes, indeed.
So why don't you start things off, since you're debuting your Cairo, why don't you start us off with what you have that you've already had before and what's new, because I know the shirt is not a what price like what I'm wearing.
Right, yes. Well, since we're talking on the subject of shirts, this is an Azuma Raiders kind of second-hand line. Funny enough, I traded this shirt with Trent Ryan, who had this Azuma, and I traded him with my Azuma, which was a little bit bigger on me, and this one is a little bit more form-fitting on me. And I love it very, very much, and highly recommend, with what price, with the Zuma, with any of your Indiana Jones shirts, dry clean them.
Yes.
Because it takes out the stiff crunchiness of the shirts, and it really just, you know, the fabric is so smooth and comfortable and everything like that. And again, especially on a 97-degree day, this works perfectly well. So I'll go ahead and do top to bottom. What I already have, at Vintage, funny enough, Streets of Cairo fedora from Tomas in 100% beaver.
And it's just one of the most fantastic hats I think I've seen on anyone's head.
Thank you.
Like, that's the thing about Tomas and at Vintage, is that no matter which hat he makes, he has a perfect eye for nailing screen accuracies, but specifically scene anachronisms with specific hats.
Yes.
And I think his Streets of Cairo is just where he really nails a majority of what he builds.
The moment where Indy loses Marion, and he's sitting there with the monkey drinking his whiskey, and he's got just such a big swoop of the brim, is exactly what I wanted Tomas to replicate. And especially for my hat size, which is, this is a 62 and a half, with a folded sweatband, I'll give that. But, you know, with my big head size, you know, not a lot of hat makers are able to accommodate such a large head size. But Tomas, if you're watching this, thank you. I love it, and I am going to take it everywhere I go. And so, going down, bag strap, another Streets of Cairo specific bag strap from Roger Brad Case at Spade Archer Leather. The leather is extremely stout, and I've had this for about 2 years now.
One of my absolute things about Roger's work, and it's the same thing on my Last Crusade strap and holster, I love these little scratches and dings that he puts in.
Yes.
Because it adds more life to the piece. With a bag strap like this, my what price, it's very bare and basic, and then you can add it in your own self.
Yeah.
But just the fact that Roger takes the time to add just those little things, I don't know, it just breathes more life into it.
I mean, I see both of these as an empty canvas because we can add more life to it as time goes on, because it's definitely had a lot more life added to it since I've received it 2 years ago. But very much to your point, like a what price is a very stout leather, but it's a blank canvas, and if you're looking for more, you know, just character and uniqueness, Roger really hits the nail on the head. And that's not me. That is the pool vacuum. And so we're gonna go down further. That is a genuine HSA gas mask bag from World War II, from 1942. And as famously noted, it always smells like the Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
And I've carried this with me for many years, and I got this from What Price Glory, and honestly, spend a couple extra bucks to get a genuine gas mask bag as opposed to a repro. If you're more afraid of damaging an actual gas mask or a genuine gas mask bag, because these are unissued, meaning that they're practically brand new.
They're what we would in the reenactor trade refer to as dead stock.
Right, and very much like that, it you know, unissued, brand new. They've just been sitting for close to 80 years now, over 80 years, just sitting there waiting for use. And what better way to use it than, you know, make it in an Indiana Jones bag? So highly recommend getting a genuine gas mask bag if you can, from What Price or from Soldier of Fortune, from
Magnoli sells them, or at least they used to. I think they still do.
They do still sell them. Magnoli, Wested, I'm blanking. At the Front, I think.
No, At the Front. At the Front stopped selling British stuff around about, I want to say 2002, 2004.
Got it. Okay.
They've focused strictly on American and German now.
Got it. Okay. Well, they're out there. I mean, you know, you can find them on eBay even. So.
Man the Line used to have a plethora of gas mask bags, but I don't know if their stock usually is very weirdly updated, and so you just got to keep your eyes open no matter where you go.
So I guess, like, as far as like just a straight guarantee, What Price?
Absolutely. Yeah. What Price always has something.
And the Cairo bag that Indy uses in the film is a WG gas mask bag. So WG indicated on the inner flap. It'll say WG. I didn't get a WG. You can get a WG.
You can get a WG.
For a couple extra bucks on What Price, which, if you can, highly recommend it.
Because it just adds more screen accuracy.
Exactly. And this is a brand new acquisition. If you followed my previous video on my gear breakdown, sans myself, this is a brand new from Reese Homatures.
I believe that's how you pronounce it.
If I pronounced your last name wrong, Reese, I totally apologize. Please let me know how I pronounce it. But Old and New Leather on Etsy. He does a fantastic job, and the cat approves.
Yep.
It is a stout leather, and this is his rich brown option. And I really think that the rich brown option, as opposed to the saddle tan option that he offers more accuracy.
It does very much look more like the swordsman scene.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah.
And the palette is just beautiful. It brings out this rich tone. It's wet molded, and he can do as much wet molding and distressing for you, or as little wet molding and distressing for you as possible. It all depends on your preference of what you want. And on the reverse side, on the belt loop, it has my personal initials, Morgan D. Moff, on it, and I just think that's a really nice personal touch. And on the inside, not a real gun, this is the world famous
Artsy 1
Smith and Resin, which both Nathan and I have in our holster.
Very proudly carry.
And this is molded, if you're not aware, this is molded after a Smith & Wesson model 1917 Bapti.
Yes, so what he used, and you can see on the stamp here, he used a Spanish police model. It's basically the same thing. The only difference is the stamp here, and the one that he molded has the standard 7-inch barrel.
Right.
And then when he molds it, he just cuts it down to the correct length, takes the sight post, and just puts it back on here.
Right. And, you know, as far as a replica piece, as far as something that's a non-firing replica, that's affordable, it does the job, and it's also extremely safe to use. It's made out of resin, like I said. Highly recommend getting Artsy 1.
And if you can't get an Artsy 1, because I haven't seen him make one of these in a long time. He sells the
Webley.
He sells the Webley, but I know he also has like just a standard cast that you would have to modify yourself.
Right.
If you don't want to go to that length, I would highly recommend Shoot and Scoot.
Yes.
They are an English-based company that sells movie props and such like that, and they have specifically the Raiders Bapti revolver with the changed sight post.
In rubber, right?
Yeah, in rubber and in resin, so you can choose which one. I know that the one that has the corrected Cairo sight post is resin. And then the one with the half moon sight post, like what's on the RC1, is the rubber version. I almost said resin again.
Rubber resin.
Rubber resin. So if you can't get an RC1, Shoot and Scoot is a really wonderful place to go.
Yes, yes. So that covers the holster, that covers the pistol. I guess we'll go on the other side of the gun belt. This is a beautiful, I'll talk about the whip holder first. This is actually manufactured from recycled leather from a Macon Jones bag strap. So it used to be this, and now it's a whip holder. And it was made by none other
Then Trent Ryan. Yeah. Trent is slowly getting himself into the leather game, and
Yeah.
I really like that because I'm still rocking the Crease and Corral replica whip holder that he built for me back in, I want to say 2021.
Yeah.
And this thing has held up extremely well. So
And the beautiful thing about both of these, because he does replicate the Crease and Corral type holster. There's a couple of things that are very indicative. One, it actually sits a little bit higher on the belt, so it looks like the whip holder is actually riveted to the belt, which is accurate to a Raiders Cairo belt, as well as the fact that these whip holders specifically are what we call grip holders, and that's indicative of a Macon Jones whip holder as well, which I also own. There is a little toggle, a little flap around here that it's a double wrap holder, but there's a little toggle and a flap that goes over the whip that actually helps the whip stay even more secure in place. I'm doing the It's a Small World hula girl dance. And I truly think that it's genius that Trent decided to recycle leather to make something like this work. Same width, same dimension, same, some of the same hardware as well, because this is still the Chicago screw that was at the end of the backstrap.
that is perfect recycling right there.
Right?
That is perfect recycling.
So Trent, if you're watching this, dude, thank you. And speaking of Trent, this was also another gift from Trent. This is my David Morgan 2019 8-foot Raiders whip, or Indiana Jones whip, because they don't make any Indy specific whips. They just make Indiana Jones style whips. But it's a 8-footer kangaroo leather, and again made in 2019. This was a birthday present from Trent, so Trent, thank you. This was on my hip at the premiere of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in Hollywood. And what more can be said? It's a wonderful sound barrier breaker. Exactly. So love it to death, and I think it just works really well with Cairo, which, funny enough, the Cairo whip allegedly was 7 feet.
I did not know that.
Allegedly, in the scene where he is whipping the Cairo thuggies away from Marion in the cart, I believe that whip is somewhere between 6 and 8 feet.
Wow.
I believe. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I read. And yeah, because they had whips ranging from 6 to 7 foot all the way up to 12 feet.
So the rumor says.
And being that it was still a David Morgan bullwhip, or David Morgan supplied the stuntman from the Raiders crew had David Morgan bullwhips, and so that's how they were used. But I just think it's interesting that, especially for a Cairo whip, you should go a little bit shorter.
I think it just makes things better and sort of more cohesive look, because especially with one of the most famous photos from Raiders, which is Indy standing next to the cart before the Cairo swordsman shot, the whip does not look like an 8-footer. And he's only got it wrapped twice, and it's just very limply hanging.
Right, exactly.
So between 7 and 8 would be a very safe bet.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the whip. And then holding both the holster and the whip, it's this beautiful What Price Glory gun belt. I mean, enough said. It's, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck.
Absolutely.
There are many vendors out there that make amazing Indiana Jones gun belts, but if you're on a budget or if you just don't feel like spending that much, this is under $40, and you can find them on eBay or on What Price Glory, and it's incredibly accurate to Raiders, and I wear this as a normal everyday belt with my jeans.
And see, that was something I was talking about before with, I made some Instagram shorts talking about the soft goods and the hardware of Indiana Jones, is that when you invest properly, you're getting clothes that you can literally wear in your everyday life.
Exactly.
Like the boots we wear almost every single day.
Yep.
The belt, of course, you know, you can use it as a regular belt if you don't have a riveted whip holder.
Right.
They're very universal, versatile pieces of clothing, and that I think is something that has always made Indy an interesting character, is the fact that he's not wearing all this crazy custom-made clothing, he's wearing found objects.
Right. That's exactly it. It's like, you know, and I think that's why a lot of us are able to go to Disneyland, of all places, in gear, because, well, sans whip and gun holster. But like, they're clothes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beautiful thing about Indiana Jones cosplay, is like you're just essentially buying clothes. When you put them all together, it becomes a very recognizable character. But when you're wearing just the hat or just the belt or the boots or whatever, you know, nobody's going to necessarily blink an eye and go, wait a minute, you're intentionally dressing like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's got a good taste in fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it's a really great investment to just, you know, invest in good indie gear, whether it's Cairo, whether it's, you know, any of the films, because you can wear a piece of it out in public and nobody will judge you thinking that you're dressing in costume.
Yeah. Pants.
Pants! So these trousers are from Adam Carolian of Carolian Dry Goods, and they were tailored. I decided to go with these are the Cairo trousers.
Yes.
So these are Cairo Gray. This is
desert gray.
the desert gray, exactly. And these are his newer trousers in his line. He's currently in the process of making another line based on the pattern from both Todd's Costumes and Noel Howard. So he has...
those are going to sell out fast.
Oh yeah. So if you're watching this, keep a sharp eye out on Carolian Dry Goods, because he's going to make an amazing pair of very close enough trousers to what I believe on the market, Todd's Costumes makes the most close enough indie trousers.
Yeah.
Because it is close enough to Noel Howard, who provided the trousers for the films.
Mm-hmm.
But what more can be said? It's got, you know, the accurate pocket flaps. They were tailored to me. You can't see them right now, but I think they were hemmed a little too high, so that's okay. You can always hem them back. It's the beauty of fabric. And they're so comfortable. They're lightweight, but they're stout.
Yeah. And that's important for indie pants, because I know that there are a lot of people who have bought like the What Price Glory pants. You used to have a pair.
I had a pair of heavyweight trousers,
And the heavyweight was not a joke.
No.
I knew a lot of people who were sweating bullets just by wearing the pants.
No, it was, you know, for functionality, I think, you know, you can find another a pair of trousers that fit the bill. For aesthetic purposes and how it looks and everything like that, yeah, absolutely. Like, heavyweight trousers look great. They have the accurate color and everything. But, you know, you're also, you know, out here, like I said, in 97-degree weather, and, you know, you want to have a pair of trousers or anything, rather, that look the part and feel good, because you're going to be wearing them for a while.
Yeah.
So, highly recommend Carolian Dry Goods. Yeah, what more can be said about it? And then just real quick, because it's often overlooked, the web belt. Web belt actually is a newer web belt from eBay. But the buckle, you always, whenever you're getting into indie cosplay, spend $4 on eBay.
Sometimes less.
For a vintage web belt buckle.
Yeah.
Mine is from the Korean War, so it's a little bit later than Indies, you know, than Raiders, but still, it's a vintage belt buckle.
Yeah, and so it has that patina that looks more the part, as to where with the newer web belts have those really nice, polished, shiny
stay bright.
Yeah, that just kind of are distracting.
Yeah, and it kind of like takes you out of like the realism and how settled in the outfit looks.
Yeah.
Because even just something as simple as this, it's a make or break difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of puts everything together. Because as we know, when Indiana Jones gear
comes together, it really comes together.
So, highly recommend it. And then the boots, you can't really see, but these are my, oh yeah, you can see them. These are my Thursday boots. These are the Thursday Diplomats. They are discontinued as of today.
Yeah.
You can still find them on eBay, Poshmark. They come in a natural tan, which is what I wear, but they also come in like this, more of what Nathan's wearing with his Westeds, which is a darker brown, so more. I would argue that the Thursdays are more of an eggplant color, but depending on how you distress them and weather them, they're a really great pair of boots.
And quite honestly, they are. If you don't want to spend $600 on a pair of genuine Aldens, or perhaps don't want to deal with the import fees of like Wested boots, if you can find a pair of Diplomats, they are, beyond the shadow of a doubt, some of the best budget boots. And I've known so many people who wore Diplomats for like 5, almost 10 years before actually getting a pair of Aldens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm currently wearing my Thursdays right now, which is, again, you know, something that you could wear on a daily basis because they're shoes.
Yeah.
I'm currently wearing my Thursdays right now in lieu or in place of my Alden 405s, my vintage Alden 405s.
Which are currently being fixed.
Which are currently being fixed at a cobbler. So I will share a video of the finished product soon. But they are vintage, cotton duck line, real nice.
Very nice.
And I think that rounds out me.
I think that rounds everything out. So then, yeah, this is my Streets of Cairo indie attire. I don't wear this much too often because I'm a big fan of the jacket.
Yeah.
The jacket look of indie has just always been my favorite. And it's interesting because of the now 5 films, only 3 does he ever take the jacket off and run around in that for a good while.
Yeah.
But for Last Crusade, for Crystal Skull, and now Dial of Destiny,
Well, he does have his jacket off in Crystal Skull.
yeah,
in the
so
beginning.
so scratch that. So in Last Crusade and Dial of Destiny, he's wearing the jacket pretty much the entire time.
Yes.
But it's understandable why you would take the jacket off because this allows a little bit more freedom of movement. It's a little bit more comfortable. But this is my Streets of Cairo. I've worn this a handful of times specifically to Disneyland.
Right.
I think after the premiere was really the first time I ever did a Streets of Cairo legitimately for the first time.
On our Disneyland trip?
Mm-hmm. So starting from the top, I have my beautiful, beautiful Streets of Cairo truck chase Fedorators made by Jason Lavillier of Canada. He's a wonderful, wonderful milliner. This to me is just aside from Tomas, you don't get any better than this.
No.
The way that because with Tomas, the way that he builds his hats is that he builds it in a very standard millinery type way. So he actually builds the hat, cuts it dimensionally, and then adds the swoop in by turning the hat as Harrison did when he got it back and all that. Jason purpose builds the swoop into the brim. So no matter how you wear it, it will never sit dimensionally cut.
Right.
It will always have the swoop, so you never have to really fully worry too much about losing it. But I still do the standard stuff to keep the swoop in there because it's just so lovely.
Yeah.
I would love to get a newer model Fedorators because the color is a little bit more accurate to the sable, like what you have on, as to where this is sort of his older color, which in certain lightings looks perfect, and then in other lightings has this sort of weird purplish hue to it.
Right.
But these are still fantastic hats. Like the flying V he does on the ribbon to me is unmatched.
Like they're seeing this in person and seeing him turn in certain angles and everything like that, even when it's not even posed, even when it's just completely candid. Like when you're in this cosplay venture for long enough, you see extreme snapshots of moments in all 5 of the films where you're just like, oh my god,
That's the hat.
that's the hat.
Yeah.
And Nathan's hat is no exception. Like he wears it so well.
Thank you. It truly is one of my favorite pieces. You know, this and my Herbert Johnson, those are my 2 most prized hats because they both come from both of my favorite films in the series, Raiders and Last Crusade. And they both have their own interesting little quirks and eccentricities. But yeah, this is my Fedora Raiders. I made like 2 whole videos on it. It's just a fantastic piece.
Right.
I'm wearing a standard What Price Glory shirt. I do love this. I would love to get an Azuma at one point because they're much more lightweight. The thing that I've noticed with What Price, like no matter what it is, the shirts or the pants, they're heavyweight.
Yes.
They have a very heavyweight fabric.
Yes.
So on a 97 day like this, I sweat a little bit more than I usually do. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
It's okay, buddy.
The bag strap, as I said before, is also What Price Glory. I like how stout the leather is on this. And something else which I find interesting is the difference in the buckles.
Yeah.
Because the buckle of a What Price is more sort of Raiders all around.
Mm-hmm.
So more like the Peru opening shot and then
Yes.
like Raven bar for the half second you see it. But what you have on, what Roger here has built, is more accurate to Cairo, so the more elongated
Yep.
rectangle as to where, you know, with the standard Raiders, it's just that nice rounded
A
square.
little wider, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I love the stout leather on this. I think it just looks really nice. I love, one of my favorite things to do is just to roll it
Yep.
like that, or in the reverse direction, because then it creates these wonderful little wrinkles in the leather.
Per the suggestion of Joey Peter Green.
Yep.
He'll just sit there and just, you know, when he's in his own little moment, just rolling on his bag strap and creating those creases and dents and just making it even more lived in.
Yeah. If you don't know who Joey Peter Green is, basically, that guy is a living Bible for all of us indie cosplayers. I think at one point, we all were like, I must buy an Akubra Federation because Joey had his and he turned it into a perfect truck.
Yeah, back in like in the early 2010s or something like that.
I want to say it was 2011 or
Yeah.
2012. I remember the first time I saw that video, I'm like, I need an Akubra.
Stuff it with newspaper,
Yeah.
put acrylic on it. Yep.
And it's just like he's kind of like been the guinea pig of everything to know exactly what the good stuff is, what is all right, and what to completely avoid.
Right.
And I think one of my favorite things was his entire gear breakdown from like 2019 or 2021.
It had to have been 2020 because it was during COVID.
Okay.
And I think that's why he did it.
Yeah, but just that huge lineup of all of his gear in his backyard, talking about his hats, his jackets, just everything, and seeing the history of like where he picked things up. We all sort of took notes and were like, okay, got to do this, got to do that. So yeah, this is just a very wonderful piece of leather, and it's connected to my genuine Mark 7. I bought this on eBay, and I have no idea who the maker is because the stamp's faded away. It's an earlier model from what I've been able to figure out, it's an earlier model to most standard Mark 7s because on the interior, there's that little piece of fabric that separates the compartments. Yeah, so this right here. With mine, and one of my favorite things about it is that it's not connected. So it free floats.
It's not connected, nor was it ever.
No, it
because
was
you
never
can see
connected.
that
Yeah.
that's so interesting.
Yeah, because it has a seam, like it was blocked off here.
That's intentional.
Mm-hmm. So to me it seems like it was built so that the canister or the mask could sit here and just hold it in place, and then when you took all of that out, you had all this extra space for whatever your purposes were. But this is a wonderful gas mask bag. One of my favorite things about the Mark 7s is the deep pockets.
Yeah.
You know, Magnoli builds a version for the modern everyday carry, and it's like,
To
to
fit
me,
like an iPad and everything.
yeah, to me, there's no point, because if you can find one of these, it'll do the same thing.
Exactly.
I mean, Trent has been carrying around that lost Journal of Indiana Jones that I got him and that sits in a standard Mark 7 perfectly.
Yep.
So it's just wonderful bags. I was lucky enough to get one of the longer side loops, which is accurate for Raiders.
Yeah, for mine it's very interesting because like mine is just
So, bit of a history lesson because I am a Second World War fanatic. This, so this is where it ends. So you do have the longer side loop. This little twine is to wrap around your torso.
got it
To keep it in place because the Mark 7 gas mask bag is not to sit so fashionably at your hip as Indy has it. It was supposed to sit up here on your chest, so you could just.
Have the mask here.
Yep.
Everything.
So that's why the actual straps are so weirdly short and very broad, is so it can sit on any pair of shoulders comfortably, and you don't have to fiddle around too much with it.
But the color.
I know that I have never in my life seen another Mark 7 in this sort of strange, dark olive.
Yeah.
I have looked everywhere, and I've never been able to find another one in this color pattern. It's one of my absolute favorite things. The only downside, and it's one of the biggest reasons I got a more standard Mark 7 off what price, is that this section here is starting to fray really badly. And I have the original strap, so I mean, if I wanted to, I could repair it with that.
Yeah.
But I think that slowly but surely this might just become a really nice display piece.
Hey, for sure. And I mentioned that in my previous video talking about this bag where it is important to because you do have to unfortunately cut the original canvas strap
Unless
off
you
this bag.
unless you have a seam ripper, then you can just pull at the seams and you won't have to damage anything.
I wish I knew that.
It's okay.
But there's plenty of canvas material to
do those repairs.
Exactly. So if for some reason this becomes frayed, like Nathan's unfortunately is, or anything like that, you could source the original material, and then it's as if nothing had happened.
Exactly.
So you still have an original World War II piece.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to consider if you ever have an issue like that.
Exactly. Moving down to my belt, this is just a really nice Amazon find. It was $20 when I bought it. Yeah, it has like the perfect Raiders horseshoe buckle. I just need to get the little metal holder and switch it out with this leather one. But this is just a nice Amazon find. My web belt is from a surplus store that was in Orange, near Fullerton. The belt buckle I got from Trent Ryan. He bought it. This is an original early Second World War belt buckle. So this is very accurate to Indy's time. And the reason he gave it to me was it wasn't holding onto his belt. I paid $5 for it, got it, and it works perfectly for me.
Looks good on him.
So the whip I have is not a leather whip. I don't have my standard Joe Strain, but that's because I don't wear this one much often, and I really need to because it's a wonderful nylon Raiders Indy.
Very accurate to Raiders.
So this is a 10-foot Raiders nylon bullwhip made by 808 Whip Co. This is a really nice heavy whip. I've cracked it, and with this particular cracker that Trent put on, it has a very hollow crack, and I like it. It's very. It feels a little bit more powerful as to where like my Joe Strain's very snappy. This is my, as I said before earlier in this video, this is my replica Crease and Corral whip holder, or as Joey Peter Green says,
Crease and Corral.
Mine also has the same tongue as with Morgan's, and it truly does add just a little bit more security.
Right. And that's kind of a hot debate too when it comes to whip keepers, because if you truly want an accurate,
You have to do
single wrap riveted to the belt.
Mm-hmm.
That's bar none accurate. Will it hold the whip?
It all depends. It really all depends, because it depends on the leather that you're using for the whip holder, and it all depends on the leather that's being used for the whip itself. Because, I mean, most whips are made out of kangaroo. No two kangaroo leathers are the same.
No.
And it's just like that for all whips, whether you're using a cow whip or a deer skin whip. Just leather is different consistency no matter what.
Yeah.
but with these, to me, that pool vacuum loves to just gurgle at the wrong times. To me, a double wrap just feels better.
Yeah.
It just feels better, unless it's an Indy 5. Like the Indy 5 that Trent made me is a single wrap, and my whip goes nowhere.
Yeah.
I need to get a Chicago screw to fix it because one of the rivets popped off. Actually, at the 30th.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went to adjust it on my belt, and I just felt it pop. So I had to awkwardly sit there and keep fiddling with it the entire movie.
Dang.
But I was like, hey, it made it all the way to the premiere, so it doesn't matter.
That's true.
Holster is, I talked about this before in my You Call This Archaeology video, but I will do it again here. This is my vintage Todd's Costumes Raiders holster. And this was given to me by Trent Ryan, as well the whip and the whip holder. Basically,
and this and this and
yeah,
this and this and
a
this.
majority of us within the indie community have Trent to thank. If Joey Peter Green is the Bible, Trent Ryan is the surplus store we all go to. He's just like, oh yeah, I got that. Here, I'll ship it to you. Pay me this. Yeah, that's just the way I see it. He's just this wonderful surplus store because he's always got things coming in, and he's just like, yeah, I'll sell it over here.
He's a pipeline. Perfect.
But this is a vintage Todd's Costumes, and I was telling Trent this. One of my favorite things about this holster is that when I was really getting into indie cosplay, and specifically when I was doing all the research to be a raider, I wanted Todd's Costumes, everything in the terms of the leather. I wanted Todd's Costumes bag strap, whip, holder, belt, holster. But I when I finally had the funds to do it, it was always out of stock.
Right.
Like there's just been that long, weird sort of stopgap where he had nothing in stock, and so Trent just told me that he was actually selling this, and he's like, I'll add the holster just with it. You pay an additional, I think it was like an additional 10, so I paid 65 for this because originally it was 55, and then I just agreed on an extra 10, so it was 65 overall. And honestly, to me, this was one of the best purchases I ever made.
The steal.
It is a steal because with how wonderfully stout this leather is, it just makes for an excellent Raiders holster. The color is just beautiful.
It really is.
But for me, it's a perfect full circle. While I don't have a whole loadout of Todd's Costumes leather work, the fact that I have a holster, which I coveted for the longest time, means the world to me. And the fact that I have an Artsy One Smith & Resin to go with it makes it even better, because the thing about this Smith & Resin that doesn't really compare except to maybe a Tanaka, is that it really looks the part, and when you're holding it and when you're doing photo shoots with it, you just really feel more like indie.
Yeah.
And something I really love about yours is that it has that accurate silver end piece, because if you notice in Raiders, it has that look to it, and I think it was probably when they actually machined off the barrel. I think it was just sort of
the shavings and everything, or
maybe it was the shavings, or maybe it was them reattaching the sight post.
oh, like welding it on.
Yeah, welding it on, or doing some, just like, I don't even want to say solder, so most likely they welded it. So I think that's probably residue from the welding of just changing the metal and removing the bluing. But I love that, and that's not on this pistol, which I'm totally fine with, because this looks more like the revolver that Indy has in his house when he tells
You know what a
Marcus.
cautious fellow I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is more accurate to Cairo. Like if you just changed out the sight post, that's a total Cairo Bapti. So it's just one of my favorite things. It's like, no matter, a lot of us have a Smith & Resin, and they're all different, and they're all accurate in different ways.
Yeah.
So it really just, it's one of my favorite things about indie cosplay, is that you can have something wildly different, and yet it's still accurate in some small fashion.
Yeah. And it's yours.
Exactly.
And you make it yours.
Exactly. These are my pants. These are Soldier of Fortune Second World War replica officer's dress pants.
They're glorious.
They are very glorious, and they're super comfortable. They have a lot of wonderful room to work in. The only thing that makes these inaccurate to a pair of Raiders to Crystal Skull Indy trousers, but not Dial of Destiny, I noticed. So these are perfect for Destiny pants. Is that Indy's trousers for the first 4 films are pleated.
Mm-hmm.
So they have these pleat marks here,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for extra fabric.
Mm-hmm.
With original officers' pants, you don't have those unless you went to a tailor and got them done that way. So these are unpleated. But I love these pants. They're super comfortable. I actually had to get them hemmed my own self because they were slightly too long, and that's just something I've noticed with a lot of military clothing, is that they make it too long so that it can purposefully be fitted to whoever has it. But I love it. Got the nice butt flaps,
Yep.
which are always important on Indy pants.
Yep.
Indy pants have to have these pocket flaps.
Yep.
I
No
don't
matter
know-
what.
Yeah, I don't know why. It just makes the pants.
Yep. It's like having a vintage buckle. It's
Mhm.
just like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to have it.
Nice deep pockets. Difference with mine is that I have a zipper fly as to where the screen accurate
fly.
pants have button flies. As I said before, my boots are wonderful, wonderful wested adventure boots. I have beaten the crap out of these from just daily use, and I've noticed that they're starting to look like the weather patterns on the Dial of Destiny jacket.
Yes.
Like it's that dark brown with those really slight rustic undertones.
Yes.
And it's one of my favorite things. And that's just the wonderful thing about indie boots, is the more you beat them up, the more accurate they look.
A point that I'd like to make, and to kind of go off tangent a little bit, Nathan, you're wearing a pair of black socks.
I am.
So
This is actually a really wonderful thing to mention.
I actually decided to spend a couple of bucks and purchase a pair of darker brown Dickies, and apparently this is a hot topic. Indy wore either black or brown socks.
Depending on the film. So I've heard that he wore brown socks for Raiders, black socks for Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, depending on the scene.
Okay.
Because there are certain shots of Last Crusade where he has the pants hiked up high enough to where they're clearly brown.
Right.
But then for Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, they're brown again.
They're brown.
They're a really nice chocolate brown. So it all depends, and it really all depends on like who we're talking about, because for a few of those scenes we're talking about stand-ins, and we're also talking about stunt actors like Vic Armstrong and
Terry Leonard.
Terry Leonard, who did all the stunts for Raiders. So it all depends on like who you're trying to go for.
Yeah.
You know, if you're Kirk Brockman, you're the world's one and only Vic Armstrong cosplayer.
Yep.
But for us, we're trying to be Harrison Ford. So there are times where we're either going for black socks or brown socks. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't think that's a side tangent. I think it's a really good thing to talk about, because that is a question I am asked.
Yeah, and it wasn't until recently that I realized that dark brown socks were actually, especially for Dial of Destiny, and you know, I just watched it for the 6th time last night, and I noticed that at the end scene where the camera's at the window, you could see his gear being
Dried off.
hung dried, yeah, and that includes a pair of brown socks.
Mhm.
And there's a behind the scenes shot of him in Sicily in Archimedes' time.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there with a pair of headphones, and his pants are hiked up a bit. You could definitely see a pair of dark brown socks.
Yeah, the other great shot is when, during the tuk-tuk chase, when he throws his boot to get the tuk-tuk unstuck.
Yep.
The pants hike up long enough to where we could see that they were brown socks. And I remember when that scene was shown at, I think it was D23, that was one of the first things everyone mentioned, was that Indy's wearing brown socks again for Dial of Destiny. Stop the presses, we have to know this.
But if you in the vein of Raiders, like another one indicative shot that I think of at the top of my head is when he's being beckoned by the mechanic off the plane, and his foot is kind of like hiked up in a way on the plane, on the flying wing, where his trousers are a bit hiked up, and you can clearly see dark brown socks.
The shot I've always known for Indy socks, and this was an argument for a long time, there's a behind-the-scenes shot of Indy meeting Belloc for the first time in Raiders, shortly after the temple run, and he's laying on the ground, and he's got his leg hiked up like this, and you can see very clearly the sock. And depending on which Fidelity version you had, the sock either looked brown or black. So that, I think, is what caused contention for the longest time of people saying, no, he's wearing black socks in Raiders, no, he's wearing brown socks in Raiders, because they were going off the same picture, but depending on who scanned it or where it's come from, the color is not going to be the same.
Well, it even goes down to the frickin' shade of the sock color. That's
Yep.
how invested we are in this journey.
That's how insane people think we are.
Well,
But it's a fun kind of insanity.
yeah.
I mean, at least we're not shooting up in alleyways or hurting people.
Right. We're just pretending to with our
Yeah,
resin props.
yeah, we're pretending to shoot Arab swordsmen.
Exactly.
So but I can't really think of anything else on this that I haven't talked about before.
No jacket. I mean, with Cairo, they're unless you go into the Flying Wing or you go into
Well of
Souls and everything like that, then yes, we have jackets that are appropriate.
And you
for
have
those
to add the
scenes.
gloves too.
And you have to have the Wells Lamont gloves.
Mm-hmm.
But for literal scenes from Streets of Cairo, basket chase,
Which, quite honestly, is the more well-known image of Indy.
yeah,
I think when most people think Indiana Jones, they think Streets of Cairo.
right.
Because that, to me, is the image that's been used for the longest while in the promotion of Indiana Jones.
It's true. It's true. The re-release poster with him cracking the whip, it's Streets of
Yeah,
Cairo.
even on the original poster, on the famous Raiders poster, it's the Cairo look.
Yep.
So that's just how ingrained this version of Indy is.
Most
in pop
VHS,
culture.
DVDs, Blu-rays feature that image.
Mhm.
That's actually a really interesting point. I guess the only thing that we're missing is the monkey.
Yeah, the stupid little Heil Hitler monkey.
Yeah, the Heil Hitler monkey. But other than that, that's our Streets of Cairo cosplay.
Oh yeah, and one more touch. Depending on what part of Cairo you're doing, so I would say that I'm early Cairo, just before Basket Chase. You're mid Cairo because you have the tail untucked.
Untucked.
So that's a nice touch that you can also do. You can either do fully tucked in, or you can do slightly untucked. Yeah, exactly.
Sweaty.
You can do slightly untucked. Yeah, button. You can either do
Written with dysentery.
Poor Harrison. Oh my God. But you know what? It made for one of the greatest scenes in movie history. So
It's true.
blessings in weird ways.
In weird disguises, yes.
So yeah, this video is just kind of to go over the fun Streets of Cairo look. We hope it's been informative. Hope you didn't mind our small little side tangents. And overall, we just hope that you find this useful if you are getting into indie cosplay and you know that you can afford a Streets of Cairo before you get the jacket, or you just want to go Streets of Cairo. We hope that this has been an informative video of where to get good gear. So, once again, thank you all for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed, and we will see you all in the next video. Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.